Hey, everybody. Hope everybody's doing good. I'm doing good here. So basically, I'm doing this live stream right now because I was watching a live um, stream on YouTube, and I tried to share the link to Facebook, and Facebook wouldn't let me do it because it was Fox News. Okay, and you know what? To me, that is straight. Uh, that's what happened to freedom of speech? This is a live stream, okay, by Fox News, okay? And it was that black chick, whatever the speaker for Biden. And I decided to try to share the live stream to my Facebook because she was straight freaking lying, okay? Lying, bold faced lying. And Facebook wouldn't have it. So you know what? I'm gonna post it anyways with my own link, okay? So that's what I'm doing this for, all right? Because F you, Facebook. F you for censoring uh, freedom of speech, okay? Homie, don't play that. So I'm gonna go around the freaking lefty losers that want to censor people because they don't agree with their narrative, okay? And that's what this video is all about. F you, Facebook. So I'm gonna do it anyways, okay? I'm gonna do it anyways. You wanna fuck with me? You wanna fuck with me, motherfuckers? I'm gonna fuck with you, alright? That's what this is about. And I'm gonna do it right now. Hang on. I'm gonna get this to my Facebook. This bitch lies, man. Okay? She's a liar. Full face lies. Come on. Here we go. Okay. Fucking, it's bullshit, man. They're censoring the people that don't agree with them, and that's bullshit. Okay?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone.
Let's make sure you can hear it loud and clear, okay?
Before we go into Q&A. The President and the First Lady grieve the 3 lives lost at UNLV yesterday in yet another act of senseless gun violence. And our thoughts are with those who survived this incident and are undoubtedly traumatized by this horrific event, including one survivor who sustained critical injuries. We are grateful for the brave law enforcement officers who ran towards danger and prevented further loss of life. At the President's direction, we have federal officials on the ground supporting local response efforts and providing all necessary assistance. The newly established Office of Gun Violence Prevention is also coordinating federal resources to help the community recover from this tragedy. Because we know it's not just the victims and survivors who need support, but this violence rips apart entire communities. And I also want to note that less than 24 hours ago, I stood at this same podium as we mourned the 6 lives lost in San Antonio. And here we are again today. When the president talks about ending the epidemic gun violence, this is what he's talking about. From Las Vegas to Texas to Memphis to Maine, when will it be enough? When will it be enough? We are in crisis and we cannot continue to live like this. As the president said, Republican lawmakers must join Democrats in Congress to advance common sense measures to protect Americans from gun violence. Literally every day we wait becomes another day too late. Today, as you all know, we made an announcement on new actions to promote competition in healthcare and support lowering prescription drug costs for American families. That includes a historic proposal to promote access to life saving drugs at a price that Americans can afford. Taxpayers have spent hundreds of billions of dollars on research relevant to developing new prescription drugs. And more often than not, those drugs aren't available to families at an affordable price. President Biden thinks that is wrong, and we're working to fix that. Today, the administration is announcing a proposal to put drug companies on notice if they are not making their product available to the public on unreasonable terms, including affordable price. This action would promote the federal government's ability to license a patent, such as those used to create life-saving drugs, to a competitor with the goal of increasing competition and bring costs down for families. Today's actions build on the steps the president has already taken to lower healthcare costs, including capping the cost of insulin at $35 for seniors. Finally, allowing Medicare to directly negotiate for lower prescription drug prices, requiring drug companies to pay rebates to Medicare if they raise prices faster than inflation, and locking in $800 per year in health insurance savings for 15 million Americans under the Inflation Reduction Act. With today's latest step, President Biden continues to deliver on his promise to ensure that Americans have affordable access to medications, the medications that they certainly need. And very importantly, today we want to wish Jewish people at home and around the globe a happy Hanukkah and a meaningful festival of lights. This is an opportunity for Jewish Americans and all of us who support them to come together, reflect, share time with loved ones, and pray for more peaceful times ahead. The President and the First Lady are looking forward to celebrating Hanukkah with the Jewish community on Monday, and we'll certainly have more to share in the upcoming days. With that, as you can see, Admiral Kirby is here to give an update on the Middle East, the Hamas-Israel conflict, and also answer any other questions you may have. Go ahead. Global questions, foreign policy questions. Go ahead.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I think we've all seen, I know you all seen, the recent attacks on maritime shipping by the Houthis. Missiles and drones fired by them from Yemen and targeting commercial vessels. These attacks represent a direct threat to international commerce and to freedom of navigation. They've jeopardized the lives of merchant sailors that represent multiple countries all around the world. And while they are launched by the Houthis, we certainly have every reason to believe that they're being enabled by Iran. As the National Security Advisor said just the other day, the Houthis are pulling the trigger, Iran is providing the guns. Now, Jake also talked about our efforts to explore the value of maritime task forces to help deal with this threat. And so today, I can tell you that the Departments of State and Defense are leading a coordinated effort to strengthen and expand the 39-member Combined Maritime Forces. That's a multinational maritime partnership which exists to counter illicit non-state actors in international waters. Everything from just basic maritime security to anti-piracy and trafficking. Our focus at this time is ensuring that there are sufficient military assets in place to deter these Houthi threats to maritime trade in the Red Sea and in the surrounding waters to the global economy writ large. We're also encouraging other like-minded nations to join this coalition, and we've actually heard some interest from several key partners that are interested in coming aboard. Additionally, the Treasury Department announced today sanctions on 13 individuals and entities responsible for providing funds to the Houthis in Yemen. These sanctions will further cut off those who facilitate Houthi attacks, and they'll follow a number of sanctions on the Houthis and the IRGC, the Revolutionary Guard Corps in Iran, that Treasury has already rolled out since the 7th of October. And of course, we are leading an international coordinated effort to condemn these Houthi attacks and their threat to global commerce, including what you, I think, saw in the G7 leader statement that we talked about yesterday, and through targeted efforts through the UN Security Council. This is an international problem, and it demands an international solution. And that is exactly the approach that the United States is going to take to it. Now, lastly, just want to make one thing clear, that the commanding officers of our ships, our Navy ships at sea, have and will execute their inherent right of self-defense. And we don't have any conclusive information right now that suggests that U.S. Navy ships have been specifically targeted by the Houthis. But, as we have in the past, so will we in the future take these missiles and drones down if we perceive a threat to our ships, our sailors, the ships and sailors of our partners, and of course, merchant traffic in and around the region. With that, I'll take some questions.
John, you talk about military assets in the region. Is the United States going to send more there, or what all is needed there?
Well, we've already bolstered the presence in the region, particularly on the maritime side. You have 2 aircraft carrier strike groups that are operating, one in the Eastern Med, of course, and then one right now in the Arabian Gulf. But as you probably know, a carrier strike group doesn't sail like it did in World War II. They're fairly disaggregated. Some ships and aircraft, obviously the air wing stays with the carrier, but other escort ships, some of the destroyers, they split off. And so, for instance, the ships that have been responding to these distress calls in the Red Sea, they belong to the Eisenhower Strike Group, even though the Eisenhower itself is in the Arabian Gulf. So I don't have any additional force posture to speak to, no announcements coming, but I do think it's important to point back to what the president has already done. And it's not just at sea. He's added additional fixed-wing aircraft to the region and air and missile defense capabilities. We're always going to keep our options open. Certainly not going to take anything off the table in terms of additional posture changes if it's required.
And secondly, Putin was in Saudi Arabia this week, as we all know. The president of Iran is in Moscow for talks. Help us interpret this. What do you see going on here?
With a huge caveat that I can't get between the ears of leaders in Iran and Russia, and nor would I try. What we have seen, Steve, in recent months, many months, is this growing, burgeoning defense partnership between Iran and Russia. Now, the obvious proof of that are the drones that Iran continues to provide Russia. And heck, they've helped Russia now create a manufacturing facility on Russian soil so they can build their own Iranian model drones, which are continuing to attack the people of Ukraine and Ukrainian infrastructure. That said, and we've talked about this many times before, Iran probably wants something out of this too. And we have reason to believe that they want their hands on some sophisticated Russian military capabilities, attack helicopters, maybe fixed-wing aircraft, missiles, cruise and or ballistic. Now, I can't sit here and tell you that we've seen actual evidence of the movement of those kinds of defense articles, but there's clearly a growing relationship in the defense realm between these two countries. And as I've also said, it's not only not good for the people of Ukraine, it's really not good for the people of the Middle East. And Iran, which can get its hands on additional military capability, some sophisticated capability, only makes their destabilizing activity all the more worrisome.
Thank you, Admiral. It's now been about a week since the pause in fighting ended. Where are talks right now with regional partners to get another temporary pause? And what are the conditions that we know of right now of hostages that are remaining and that other American woman?
Talks are still ongoing. Discussions are happening literally every day. Our team is in touch with our partners on this. I wish I had specific progress to speak to. I don't. Obviously, we're not close to inking another deal on a humanitarian pause, and nor do I have any news to break here today about the return of hostages, either ours or those of many other countries that are being held hostage. We're still trying to get as much information as we can about the hostages that are being held. We have some information, as I said before, on some of the hostages because their families are talking to us, and that's been a terrific source of information and context. We have less information on others, but not for lack of trying.
And after the failed vote in the Senate yesterday to advance the supplemental funding, what are the plans from the president to get this back on track? Any calls made to the Hill? Any plans to work the phone?
I don't have any calls to read out. I don't know if Karine does. Yeah. Go ahead.
I mean, we've been very, very clear about the supplemental and how important it is. As you've seen, the OMB director has been pretty out there on the different networks, making the case. And one of the things that she has said is that it's stunning. It's stunning that we've gotten to this point, right? It's stunning that we have gotten to this point, and that Republicans in Congress willing to give Putin a gift, the greatest gift that Putin could hope for. That's what we're seeing. And so they are playing chicken with our national security. That's what we're seeing here. And history will remember them harshly. And so as it relates to outreach, we've been very clear that we have had those discussions with them on a regular basis, and that but the path forward is very clear. The path forward is that they need to get this done. And, this is something that the president was very loud about, very clear about yesterday when he spoke to the American people in front of many of you and many of your colleagues. He made his message really clear, right? That we need to get this done. Congress needs to get moving forward very quickly because we're running out of time. Now, our Office of Ledger Affairs, OMB, and SC are in close touch with lawmakers, as they have been for some time, with both parties, and about the need of this critical national security. Let's not forget, when we talk about a supplemental, we're talking about the urgency, right? It is an emergency. That's why we ask for it. That's why we ask for the extra funding for our national security. And so it's time for Congress to get this done. We have to continue to make sure that the brave people of Ukraine have what they need as they are fighting for their democracy. And so I know the Admiral could speak a lot more about that, as he has in the past 2 years, but that is our focus here. And we're going to continue to be very, very clear, talking to certainly both sides about the importance of this national security request.
You picked the next one.
Oh, I thought you were gonna add to it, because I was like.
No, I
Yeah,
can't.
sorry.
I could not possibly add to that. It was very, very,
I'm waiting for you.
no, it was a very comprehensive answer. It was good.
On a quick housekeeping matter, do you have the readouts ready of the president's calls with King Abdullah and Prime Minister Netanyahu?
You'll see him soon.
Okay. Was there any significance to those calls happening today?
Part of the regular outreach by the president to regional leaders as events continue to unfold between Israel and Hamas. As we said, as I said yesterday, you can expect them to be talking to Prime Minister Netanyahu soon, and of course he did.
And has the U.S. independently confirmed claims from the Israeli military today that Hamas rockets have been fired at Israel from humanitarian zones?
I have not been able to confirm that.
Thank you, Greg. John, when the administration relieved sanctions on Venezuela's oil sector in October, it was on the condition that Nicolas Maduro begin releasing Americans being held hostage there by November 30th, which is obviously passed. No Americans were released. It's December 7th.
Nor were any political prisoners.
Wrongfully detained Americans from Venezuela. What's the status of that sanctions relief, and what are the consequences for him missing that deadline?
We don't telegraph punches in the sanctions realm. We don't get ahead of sanctions decisions, so I'm not going to do that today. Obviously, we always have that option available to us, but I'm not in a position now to rule anything in or out. Deeply concerned that those commitments weren't followed through by the evening of the 30th.
And staying on Venezuela, obviously since the invasion of Ukraine, the administration has said that it's committed to protecting, territorial integrity around the world for the nation states. And here you have Maduro threatening to annex 75% of its neighbor. What is your public message to Maduro, and is there any private message being sent to Maduro about the consequences of this?
Yeah, so again, I've said this before, but we obviously support the peaceful resolution of the border dispute between Venezuela and Guyana. And we absolutely stand by our unwavering support for Guyana's sovereignty. The 1899 arbitral award that determined the land boundary between those two countries should be respected unless or until the parties themselves reach a new agreement or a competent legal body decides otherwise, and that hadn't happened. So we're going to urge Venezuela and Guyana to continue to seek a peaceful resolution of this dispute, including by the International Court of Justice.
Just back to the supplemental package that failed to advance last night, has anything since then been communicated by the administration to Ukraine? I guess, what are they to sort of make of the fact that there's such an impasse on Capitol Hill right now?
Without trying to speak for the Ukrainians and what their interpretation of what's going on here, and particularly up on Capitol Hill, as you know, Ukrainian leaders were here in town yesterday over at the Pentagon for a Defense Industrial Conference. We're trying to make sure that we get in place the mechanisms so that they have a healthy defense industrial base and long-term security assistance built into their own self-defense, because they're going to need it wherever and however this war ends. And obviously, the events of yesterday were certainly a context and background to that meeting. But I won't speak for the Ukrainians. I can only speak for us. And as Kareem mentioned, we're obviously deeply concerned about this. We've got a few more weeks here, and then we're out of Schlitz. when it comes to helping Ukraine with this kind of security assistance that we've been able to provide. And that's just, that should be unacceptable to everybody. And we know that there's strong bipartisan support up there. It's just that there are a small number of Republicans that want to hold that aid hostage for some pretty extreme border policies that the president is not willing to talk about. That said, he did say we're willing to negotiate in good faith. He does believe that there should be immigration policy changes as well as resource changes, and he's willing to have that conversation.
So at this point, can the White House offer any assurances that more, additional funding is coming their way, or no?
We are not in a position to make that promise to Ukraine, given where things are on the Hill.
John, there is a report that some of the hostages who are being held by Hamas have been sexually assaulted. The AP is quoting a doctor who treated some of the hostages that were released, and he says that at least 10 of them, men and women, were sexually assaulted while they were in captivity. What do you know about this? Do you have any indication, any evidence that the hostages have been sexually assaulted?
I got sort of a version of this yesterday. I can't confirm these individual reports and stories. They're horrific. Sadly, because of who we're dealing with, we certainly aren't in a position to disabuse these reports. And the truth is, they're believable just on the face of it because of who these guys are and what they believe. And because we have heard other accounts from other survivors that have come back and other hostages. And as the president said, I think very eloquently the other day, I mean, it's inhuman what Hamas has proven capable of. And that is all the more reason why we're working, as to the earlier answer I gave, by the hour to see if we can't get another pause in place so that we can get these hostages home to their families where they belong. Now, obviously, we know that Hamas is holding some additional women and children. So let's get them out. And then we can talk about the other groups. We understand they classify people. Let's get the remaining women and children out and get them out from under the jackboot of Hamas and potential sexual violence.
So, in terms of the aid package yesterday that went down, is there any second guessing at the White House about the president's decision to put border security into the same package and therefore give Republicans in some way, leverage to make one hostage to the other? You can't complain that they are linking the two issues since you linked the two issues. Is there any second guessing about that? Was that a mistake?
No. All four buckets of the supplemental, Peter, were of an urgent nature. Ukraine, Israel, we've talked about. There was also money for Indo-Pacific strategy, of course, with AUKUS and the developments of coming forward, trying to get Australia their nuclear propelled submarine capability, and then the border, and some $6 billion in there for additional resources for the border. I mean, if you listen to the Republicans talk about the border and the urgency that they think needs to be conveyed, okay, well, it was in our national security urgent request, $6 billion for the border. We share a sense of urgency, so act on that. Act on that.
Thank you, Kirby. Congressman Michael McCall, the chair of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, told Politico that PEPFAR reauthorization negotiations are deadlocked. What is the White House sense of where that stands right now, and what's the administration doing to push that process along? And if it's not reauthorized, what are the consequences of that? Can the funding continue?
This is a program that over 20 years has literally saved something like 25 million lives. Again, there's, without speaking to the negotiations on the Hill, and this is something that should be as nonpartisan as it can be. I mean, you're talking about millions and millions of lives at stake here. So we urged them to find a way forward here to reauthorize this funding.
Is this something that we would see the president engage with lawmakers on, given what a priority this seems to be for the administration?
It is absolutely a priority for the president. I won't get ahead of his schedule or his phone calls, but I can tell you he's watching this very, very closely because he knows personally what a lifesaver this program has been.
Thanks, Kirby. One follow-up on Venezuela. I know you said you wouldn't telegraph on sanctions, but can you give us a sense of a timeline of when the administration will make a decision on sanctions rollback?
Sounds a lot like telegraphing. No.
On, one more on the, I want to ask you about the grounding of the Osprey fleet. Any updates on that? And I know some of them are in the presidential fleet. Are there any special considerations being discussed with them, and what kind of checks will be required to put those back into HMX?
I asked about this earlier myself, because I kind of thought you guys might be asking the question from that perspective. It's a force-wide stand down, and that means every Osprey in the force. And these Osprey belong to the United States Marine Corps, part of the force, so they'll be subject to the stand down too. And this is a common procedure when there's a significant aviation mishap, and when you can't rule out when an aircraft goes down that there might be some larger systemic problem. It's common practice. It's the right thing to do. Put them all on the ground, put them through an inspection regime, make sure that you don't rule that out as a problem. Maybe, and so that maybe it's just aircraft specific, platform specific, and not necessarily the whole system. So, they'll do that, and I have no doubt in my mind that they'll do it as expeditiously, but also as safely as possible. We won't let them back into the air until we know that we can do it with a measure of certainty.
John, as Kareem just noted, tonight at sundown starts the Festival of Lights, the Jewish holiday Hanukkah. Are there any specific or credible threats right now to Jewish sites or Jewish communities that you can share with us? And is there a message to those communities or any community in this country what they should be prepared for as we embark on the first of 8 nights?
I don't have any specific credible threats to speak to, in the sense that, to a certain locality or community or through a certain actor. What I can assure you, Peter, and the Jewish community, is that we are working very, very hard at the federal level to analyze all the streams of intelligence we can, domestically and overseas, for any spillover effects from the conflict in Gaza to here at home, particularly against the Jewish community, as well as the Muslim and Arab communities here in the States. And that we, more importantly, are working to share what we're learning and hearing with local and state authorities, who would really be where the rubber meets the road in terms of trying to prevent. But we want to be able to, again, without any credible knowledge of a specific threat, we want to be able to identify it before an actor can move, and certainly disrupt that as best we can.
Does the U.S. have any concerns about Israel exploring the possibility of using seawater to flood out some of the tunnels used by Hamas beneath Gaza right now? Among the possible concerns are there hostages in those tunnels? And also from the Palestinian Water Authority, I think it is, they say that this would have devastating effects on the aquifer that's beneath there that would make this land unusable in the future if it's to, as it would be retained by the Palestinian people.
Yeah, I can't speak to the reporting about this particular idea. I'd refer you to the IDF. I would just say that, as we have said many, many times before, while they go after this very legitimate threat, we continue to urge our Israeli partners to do it in a way, as Secretary Blinken said, how they do it matters, in a way that minimizes the risk not only to civilian life, certainly to our hostages, or the hostages, but also to civilian infrastructure. And I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you. The president last night spoke about how he's fighting every day for the release of a number of journalists, and he included Alsu Kermasheva, Radio Free Europe, in that list. If he's saying that she should be released and he's pledging to fight for that, does that mean that the president believes she is wrongfully detained, regardless of where the State Department process is?
It means that he believes that she ought to be able to do her job as a journalist and not be detained by Russian authorities. I am not in a position to get ahead of the State Department. As you know, Catherine, they are the ones that make the decision about wrongful detention. And as I understand it, they're working their way through that process.
Thanks, John. Back on Venezuela, Southcom announced that it was going to be conducting flight exercises over Guyana today. Is that timing meant to send a message to President Maduro about U.S. support for Guyana and its territorial integrity?
I'd be careful drawing too strong connective tissue between routine military operations that we do in the region and this particular issue. That said, as I said before, we recognize the sovereign territory of Guyana, and as we do with many nations, sovereign nations in the region, we conduct operations and exercises as appropriate.
How far would the U.S. be willing to go to show that support? Would it be willing to help Guyana maintain that territorial integrity?
Militarily. I'm not going to speculate about that kind of a thing. What I said yesterday stands. We want the internationally recognized border recognized. We want these two sides to work it out diplomatically. We've already expressed our support for the 1899 arbitral award, which set that boundary. And as I also said yesterday, we don't want to see this come to blows. There's no reason for it to.
Thanks, Green. John, is the U.S. in any sort of a conflict with the Houthis?
Yeah, sort of a conflict with the Houthis. We are not in an armed conflict with the Houthis per se. That said, as I said at the top, we're going to do what we have to do to protect ourselves, our partners, and merchant shipping. And we've done it in the past. We'll do it again in the future.
That sounds a little bit like a conflict.
We are protecting and defending freedom of navigation. We're protecting and defending our ability to operate in the region, in the Red Sea and surrounding. Gaza, wait. Name another nation that's doing is more than the United States to get hostages out.
Over at Gaza to search for hostages. For the rights for women to make decisions on their health care, and we're going to continue.
About that. I want to go to the lie.
HR 2, which is extreme. It is extreme. That is not moving in good faith. And so that's what we're seeing in situations where, people are coming from dire situations, right? Dire scenarios. And so we disagree, strongly disagree. Look, Republicans talk about
back it up here because it sounds like a lie.
Saying that. So we are glad that this person will get the care that she needs from her doctor. Again, should be her decision to be made with her doctor, which is sometimes some really difficult decisions that women have to make. And this is an administration that's been really clear about that, fighting for the rights for women to make decisions on their health care, and we're going to continue to speak loud and clear about that. But we should not detract from the fact that stories like hers are becoming all too common in states where Republican elected officials are enforcing dangerous extreme bills that threaten the lives of women. And so since that Supreme Court, as you just mentioned, overturned Roe v. Wade, the Dobbs decisions, women are being denied medical care they desperately need in order to preserve their health and even save their lives. They've been turned away at emergency rooms, forced to delay care at grave risk to their own health, left with complications that threaten their ability to bear children in the future, and made to travel hundreds of miles for medical care that they need. So ensuring women have access to emergency medical care has been a core focus of this administration since the Dobbs decision, and we're going to continue to fight for that. And we're going to make sure that providing care and giving guidance and the House Republicans want to move forward with, right? And let's not forget what's in HR 2, right? HR 2 forced the deportation of unoccupied children seeking refuge. It mandates detention of all families. That's the extreme. That's what we're seeing from HR 2. That's not moving forward in good faith. Okay.
So what would Republicans have to do to show that they are willing to operate in good faith on this subject in order for the White House to engage in negotiations?
So look, they should have a conversation with Democrats. Democrats have said that they want to compromise. Have that conversation. Right? Just make that discussion, have that discussion, negotiate in good faith with our Democratic leaders in Congress. Have that conversation.
Well, there have been bipartisan negotiations taking place for weeks in the Senate. Are you saying that that's the proper venue for this discussion, not discussions between Senate Republicans and directly with the White House?
The negotiations has been happening and should be happening with Republicans and Democrats in Congress. That's what should be happening. And we want to continue to for them to have those conversations. But they're not moving forward in good faith. They're just not. And, when you have a speaker demanding to push forth HR 2, which is extreme, it is extreme. That is not moving in good faith. And so that's what we're seeing. And let's not forget, House Republicans voted to cut 2,000 border agents. They are blocking the president's efforts to secure the border and enforce the laws. Those are the things that they're doing. So where's the good faith? Where's the good faith there?
So when Senator Cornyn says he thinks this needs to be kicked up to another level, direct talks between Leader McConnell and the president or his aides here at the White House, you're saying that's not going to happen?
What we're saying that Republicans need to act in good faith and show that they're serious, and they're not, because they're blocking, right? They're blocking the president's request for funding. That's what they're doing. So
What do you do?
that's what we want to see. We introduce, here's the thing. We introduce a comprehensive piece of legislation to deal with the immigration system, a broken system. We did that on day one. That was our effort to have that conversation, to negotiate and be able to put forward a piece of legislation that could be voted on. The president put forth his ideas on how he wanted to move forward. It's been 3 years. What they continue to do is block. What they continue to do is take away law enforcement, right? That they keep voting against trying to make the system better. That's not acting in good faith.
Is there time to put together a deal this year? Are you running out of time?
I mean, look, it is, yes, we are running out of time, right? We are running out of time.
Yes, you are.
And that's why we keep pushing and saying this national security supplement needs to move forward. We talked about Ukraine. We've talked about Israel. The reason we included the border security is because the president thought it was important and we needed those additional funding to move forward to deal with the issue at the border. So obviously, this is an emergency. This is important. But yeah, we are running out of time.
And would the White House accept a deal that designates Mexico as a safe third country?
I'm not going to negotiate from here. I'm just not going to negotiate from the podium. Get him, Jay.
Corinne, yesterday when I asked the president whether he believed any other Democrat could defeat Donald Trump other than him, he said probably 50 of them. I'm not the only one. A big part of the re-elect argument is that the president is best suited or uniquely suited to take on former President Trump. If the president himself thinks that plenty of other Democrats can defeat Donald Trump, what would you say is sort of the driving rationale for the president running for re-election rather than handing off the baton to the next generation?
So MJ, as you can imagine, it's a 2024 question. It's an upcoming election. I just can't get into it. Look, our focus is going to continue to do what we've been doing the last 2 years, almost 3 years, right? Which is making sure we deliver our promise that we've made to the American people. Is to make sure that we have an economy that works for all, that works for the middle class. And we have had some historic progress here, right? When you think about the 14 million jobs that have been created, when you think about even further back, when you think about what the president walked into, an economy that was in a tailspin, and getting that back on its feet. So the president wants to continue to do that, continue to lower costs for Americans, continue to make sure that this economy is working for all. There's our democracy. He wants to continue that we're making sure we're fighting for our democracy. Remember, the president initially said something I can talk about in 2019 and in 2020 when he was running